welcome to the first week of No Sew November. So today I'm going to be taking you through the process of making my mini No Sew journal that I will be using for this week of the prompts. So I'll pop the prompt list for the month of November up on the screen here. You can use these as regular like daily art journaling prompts, but what I've decided to do is split them up and do 4 mini journals. So for this one I'll be working on prompts 1 through to 7 and then 8 through to 14 and so on, so that I've got a new little mini no sew journal each week. So we'll be doing something slightly different. It's all kind of based around the accordion like concertina fold of a journal, but I'm just going to be doing something a little bit different. So make sure you pop back each Friday in November and I'll be making a new little journal to show you how you can do something a little bit different with the no sew format. So I wanted to start off with this tag journal here because it's a really nice and easy format to make a no sew journal out of. You've probably also got tags as well if you want to make one of these yourself. I'm just using these plain cream tags here, and the dimensions, just if you're wondering for these tags, they are 11 centimeters by 5.5 centimeters, and obviously they've got a hole punched in them as well. This is just hobbycraft tags, that's where I got them from. So these are the ones that I've used. You can use different sized ones as well, but I'm going to just show you how we're going to bind them together and create the journal. So like I said, it's the same as an accordion style, so there's no like fancy measuring or folding, anything like that. All you're going to need is some scissors, and I'm using some masking tape here. This is a really wide roll because I'm doing a lot of decorating at the minute, and so that's why I've got a giant roll here to tape off when I'm doing painting, but it comes in handy for my art projects as well. This is what the base of the journal will look like, and you can either use it portrait like this as a normal tag, or you can use it landscape. I kind of want to use it landscape just for something a little bit different. And what I've done is I've cut some ribbon here. You could use like lace or anything. And I've used the hole for the tag as a way of actually using it as a closure for the journal itself. So you'll see here I've just sort of tucked it in like this by folding it in half. And that way then that's acting as the closure for this journal, because the worry with a no sew journal is obviously that it kind of opens up like this, and so the fact that there's already a pre-punched hole in tags makes it really easy for you to just poke some string or some ribbon through this and you've got your closure and nothing's going to go anywhere. You can tie it around the width of the tag as well if you want, but it's like pre-made and perfect and ready to go, so that's why I decided to use the pre-made holes for the closure. And then as you see, the tags are just connected as so they fold in an accordion sort of concertina style like this. And for this journal I have used 7 tags because I have the 7 prompts that I'm going to be doing for this challenge. So all I did was picked out the tags, and what you'll want to do is grab 2 of them, not 3, they're all coming with each other, is I just grabbed 2 of the tags like this. So all you're going to want to do is cut off some masking tape to the length of your tags, and just because this is a wider masking tape, you can get obviously different sizes, I'm just going to trim this one down so it's not as wide, and this is actually perfect for using on this cream base because it kind of blends in, and because the masking tape isn't shiny or anything like that, we can work on top of this as well with, you know, paint and other things as well, so it's great for connecting the journal together. So I'm just going to take this piece here, make sure that the tags are lined up nicely at the bottom there, add this on one side and then join these up, and just making sure that they are even on the bottom and the top. And then it just creates a really simple fold. You can fold it either way, but you'll notice like it's harder to fold this way. Like I'm really having to push it this way, but it like wants to fold this way. So what I've done when making the journal is added the tape on this side for this fold, and then when I want the journal to fold this way, I've just turned it around and added the masking tape on the other side. And to be honest, when I come in with, you know, paint and collage and things like that anyway, it's not going to be a worry or an issue that the journal is going to fall apart. Like, this is strong enough to hold some tags together. It doesn't have to be like precise or neat because we're going to come in with collage and things anyway, so you won't necessarily see that. And there is the 3 tags joined together, and you can see the sort of zigzag fold that it makes. So I've got the piece on the front here and then on the reverse, and then they just fold up nicely and create that zigzag format. So you would go ahead and just repeat this process for the 7 tags or however many tags you're adding to this journal, and that would create then the concertina fold that you need for this journal. And then, like I said, you can either use it long ways like this, or you can use it in like a regular tag format as well, or you could use it upside down if you really wanted to, but I'm going to use mine lengthways like this just for something a little bit different. So this is the one that I have here with the 7 tags, and like I said, I've just got a bit of ribbon here. I've used black just for a bit of contrast. I might end up changing this as I come in and decorate the journal itself, but I'm looking forward to decorating this now with each of the 7 prompts. For week 1, we have connect, flow, merge, link, blend, intertwine, and waves. And with these prompts, I went with the idea of how the No Sew journal is connected and things can go throughout the journal. So that's why the prompts are a little bit more abstract than your regular prompts for journaling of, like, you know, more literal things of making a tag or imagery like florals or things like that. So I encourage you to have a go with the different prompts. Maybe you might like to do a bit of brainstorming and thinking about how you want to approach some of the prompts, and think of the different creative ways that you can take that idea and run with it in your journal. So what I'm probably going to do, even though I've done 7 tags, is I'm probably going to work across all or like at least a few every time I do the prompts. And because this is a mini journal, then it'll kind of become one cohesive little project. So that's how I'm going to approach these prompts. So let's dive into decorating this journal. So I'm going to show you how I approached decorating this journal, and I sort of did it in stages and used the prompts to just help me to come up with like starting off points. So you'll see as we go through, sometimes it's maybe a little bit abstract, but it's just that idea of getting started. So the prompt for day 1 is connect, and I applied this to my collage by thinking, okay, I'm going to just connect all of these individual tags with my collage and laying them across the joins of the tags. So you'll see there where I'm laying it across 2 different tags, and that way I am connecting them, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I've approached the prompt for day 1, and I'm using a mix of different papers here, as I always do. I've got book pages, I've got just like random scraps of like tea-dyed papers and all sorts of bits and pieces. I basically just went through my stash and pulled out a bunch of different papers. I kept the colour scheme fairly neutral, which is something that I always do, but I think it's really great for a background just to have that start off point being quite neutral, and then you can kind of take it in all different directions then, you know, it kind of just goes with anything that you want to add to it. And so I even included some brown paper here as well. So this was just a piece that I had from packaging, and I had done stamping with literally just like a cardboard tube, super easy with some white acrylic paint, and then I had some collage paper there ready to go. I'll link the video if you want to see how I was upcycling some packaging papers to use within my journals, because having a stash of those on hand, like you can just sort of batch make a load of them, and then having them ready to go when you want to do a project like this, especially if you are doing this as a daily challenge, is really great. So whether you've got like a little bit of a kit set up and you've just sort of collected little bits and pieces that you think you might want to use throughout the month, it can make it a lot easier then when you come to your journal each day and you can just get started and you can sort of pick from the things that you've already got. You don't need to do all that thinking, like, when you sit down and you're like, right, what am I going to do? What am I going to use? And then you get distracted for half an hour rooting through all of your craft supplies. I know I've been there before. So for these sorts of things, that's why I like to just have, okay, either a kit or just like sort of a bit of a constraint as well, in terms of like, I'm only going to use certain supplies or certain colors or certain themes, and just have that restriction, because you can still be creative within that. But that's what I did for the first day of this prompt of Connect, was just to simply lay down my base sort of collage papers and keep it really simple, because I don't want to get too like overcomplicated with this challenge. I want to make it nice and easy to create within my journal. And so, related to that, I'm also approaching each of these prompts in really bite sized chunks. So, rather than doing a page for each of these prompts, I'm taking them as almost an action that I can do within my no sew journal. I think just because of the format and the way that a no sew journal is set up, I tend to start working across different pages, or in this case, different tags. And so, with it being mini as well, I wanted to sort of work across all the different ones, and then I can sort of feel it all coming together as one cohesive like background almost for this journal. So for day 2, the prompt is flow, and I've taken that to be like flowing in terms of water, and then my mind immediately went to coffee staining in the way that I do it, adding it to the page. And then you can see I'm just sort of like tipping it and letting the coffee sort of go across the page, and that way then, rather than me just like sort of brushing it on and it gets like covered in one entire section, you can kind of see the way that it drips across the page. I was originally going to do like inks, which I think would be a really good idea to have for flow, because you could have the inks like kind of dripping down the page or moving, and sort of that flow element across your pages, which I just think is really fun for a no-sew journal. Can be a little bit messy. Not gonna lie, I did kind of get coffee a little bit everywhere. But as you can see, it creates just a really nice background, and I love the way that it helps to start to bring together the collage papers and the aged effect that it gives as well. So this is how it's looking after 2 of the prompts, and I've got that sort of neutral background that I'm building up, and you can see all of the layers and textures starting to form. So for day 3, our prompt was merge, and I had to do a little bit of brainstorming and thinking about what I wanted to do for this. And one thing that I do if I'm not sure what I want to do for a prompt is that I will just literally Google like the dictionary definition and see what comes up. So the definition, it was talking about, obviously when you merge things and it's like combining 2 things. And in the example that it gave, it was talking about, like merging old and new. And I thought that's something that I could do and apply to a technique within this journal. So what I ended up taking that to be was I did new in terms of like a modern stencil design here that I applied to the page. So that's kind of like the new aspect. And then, as you'll see in a moment, I pulled out one of my just sort of like vintage gardening books, and I cut out some illustrations and used that as the like sort of old aspect of this, and I sort of laid them together. So you'll see I've kind of added the stenciling, and then I've added the image sort of next to it or like overlapping, and that way then they are kind of merging these two different styles, because I definitely think you have the more like vintagey look versus then the modern stencil design that kind of goes a bit more with like abstract art journaling. So I kind of wanted to merge the two in a way. And yes, this is something that I've done previously within my journals, but I think the fun of having the prompts is that I'm kind of working in a different way. So if I was to just work on this normally, I mean, I might not have come up with the ideas that I have, but I also might not have done them in the specific order. And you'll see as I continue working within this journal, that kind of like has a knock on effect with what I am adding to the journal. So I just think the prompts are a really fun way to kind of give you that kickstart and just coming up with something if you didn't have like an idea of what you wanted to do. And I really liked the pop that the white acrylic paint had on this neutral background. And I also just used a paintbrush rather than, say, like a sponge, because I kind of wanted that texture from the paintbrush to come through on my page and sort of make it look like as if I had painted it. But obviously, like, I can't paint such perfect circles, but it kind of gives that impression, and you also have that imperfection with it as well. So there's just a close up, you can see all of the texture starting to come together. So for the next prompt of link, this is day 4. And again, I'm kind of gone a bit abstract with this one. My thought process was that I could just like link the pages together with the mark making that I've done. So I've literally just taken a neo color here and I have scribbled it across the bottom of all the pages. I've held it really far back just to have that abstract motion, and that's linked the pages together. It's got something that you can follow with your eye. And then as I was adding that, I picked up my white charcoal pencil that I don't gravitate towards that often. Sometimes I even forget that I have charcoal pencils in my stash, but I decided that they would be perfect for the next day's prompt, which is blend. So I started to just add this around the edges of the pages, and it's sort of an alternative, I guess, to using white paint on your pages because it's a lot more subtle, and you can see I was like blending it in, so it kind of had a more ghosted effect almost. And yes, it can be a little bit messy, but generally speaking, a lot of it does stay on the page. I'll probably add like a bit of a sealant to this. I've got like a pastel spray sealant that I'll probably add onto this just so that I don't get like white charcoal everywhere with this little project. But it's not showing up super well on camera because it's quite subtle, but that's why I added. And then I decided I wanted to use one of my distress oxides. So I know people have the the proper tool and the fancy little blenders to do this, but I don't have that. So I literally just took the ink pad here and I just sort of added it to some of the edges of the tags, and then used a paintbrush and water to blend that across the edges. And that way then I had a bit of a subtle hint of pink, and it gave some colour to an otherwise fairly neutral journal that I had going on. So I just added it on some of the edges and had that as well in terms of blending. So I had the charcoal and then I also had the ink. So it was really fun to work with some different materials and some different techniques that I don't normally gravitate towards. So I think that's really great in terms of working with the prompts. Now for the next prompt, this is Intertwine, and I had to take out the footage because I was concentrating too much and I was off camera, but I ended up using a craft knife to cut some slits within the tags, so on 2 of them. And then I put some pieces of paper like sort of woven in between them, which looking back at this would probably be far better for the prompt of weave. However, when I was just thinking about intertwine, I was just thinking about how I could sort of interconnect different papers. And when looking at the structure of the journal, so because it's the no-sew, you kind of have that play between both sides of the journal that you work on. And so I thought it would be fun just to have a couple of different pieces of paper sort of intertwined within each other and kind of look like it was meant to be there. So it's just sort of a different way of approaching collage, I suppose. And it was quite tricky to be able to add these little pieces of paper because it was quite fiddly in terms of having, a piece going like behind and then in front and so on. But I just used a patterned piece of paper. It's like a really pale, like cream and green colour, which I thought complemented nicely. And then also some like tracing paper type material as well. And then I just sort of went for it in terms of working in the journal. So this is kind of what happens when you've started and then you've done your prompt and then you just kind of keep going. So I think this is really highlighting how great prompts can be, because I was just then in the mood to create in this journal and sort of kept going. So I had to sort of reel myself back in, as you'll see in a moment, because I just sort of carried on with working in this and almost forgot that I had another prompt to do within this journal. But this is just a Caran d'Ache Luminance pencil that I'm using, and I'm adding some green like leaves and foliage sort of within the gaps that I had. So there's a few areas where there was just either the coffee staining or like a plain piece of paper, and so I wanted just to add some detail and some interest, but I didn't want to completely take it over. So I wanted to make sure that it was light enough that it would still be within the background, but that it also did add something to the page. And I suppose you could say something about the way that they are sort of intertwined within all of the collage and things, but the reality is that I just got distracted and started working on other things within this little mini journal in order to build up this background. So the thing that I did with this is that I used the prompt in order to create my background, and then I did actually come in and add some more like bits of collage and writing within this journal, which I will show you at the end how that turned out. But yeah, you can see I'm like adding stickers here. I'm just getting so distracted. These stickers are by my friend Daisy, my green cow. I love her little phrase stickers. I've used them quite a lot within my journals. But yes, let's go back to the final prompt for this week. So for day 7, the prompt is waves, and I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to do this, and I knew I wanted to maybe have some sort of like line work that had a bit of a wave pattern, so something a bit more subtle. And what I ended up doing was adding my brush lettering here. So my favorite pen to use for this is a Tombow Fudenesuke, I think it's pronounced. And what I did was I added the lettering, and then I came in afterwards and added some like underlining almost, and did a bit of a like mimicking of a wave shape. So this is probably an example of a prompt that is a lot more subtle, but again, it's just sort of that starting off point and given me an idea of what I might want to include within my journal. And then I'm back to being distracted and just adding all manner of bits and pieces within this journal. I really enjoyed working within this format and having these tags just as something different to work on. So I'm adding just some washi tape here, and then I pulled out my paint sample journal that I've been working on, and this was from the old cover that I had, so I decided to give it a home and pop it on the cover of this journal, and you can see there how this is starting to take shape. And I just kept going and adding different bits onto this. I wanted to add some colour as well with this illustration that I'd cut out here. So we will go now and look at what the final journal looks like, because I did add some extra writing and things, as you will see. So here are some close-ups of, I'd say, almost completed no-sew tag journal that I made for the first week of no-sew November. So I hope you enjoy this first week of prompts, and that maybe this has given you some inspiration so that you can dive into your no-sew journals this week. As always, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week for the next no-sew journal.